Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Chimera's Core studio. Welcome to the show. Okay, so the banning that happened the other day maybe didn't go over exactly the way that the rules committee thought it might, or maybe they did anticipate a decent amount of backlash essentially and had this ready. I'm just going to say that it doesn't seem like this banning went nearly as well as ones in the past have, because this one seemed to take many people out there, including myself, by surprise. Let's jump into it, though. The Rules Committee has put out a clarifying document, an FAQ, frequently asked questions, for those that don't know that abbreviation. But here we go. September 2024 Commander Banning FAQ. The following questions have come up repeatedly in the aftermath of this week's bannings. This document aims to provide an easily linked to source for answers. Those answers may not be satisfying or provide solace, but they hopefully provide clarity. Good word, use the word solace right there. Moving on. Before we start with the questions, we need to make one thing perfectly clear. While disagreement and good faith discussions is welcome, threats of violence, including people supporting those threats, is beyond the pale. They have no place to Commander. I 100% agree. My goodness, people, calm down. And then also threats of any kind directed at anyone at the CAG, moderators, or RC are not only counterproductive, they will be dealt with immediately through the appropriate channels, legal channels. I mean, I hope they will, because do not, oh my goodness, do not badger anyone online. Number one, constructive criticism is always welcome, but do not badger people, do not threaten people. Ridiculous. Okay, moving on. So to the questions. First up, did the RC sell any of their cards before banning to avoid loss of value? I mean, this is a fair question, I guess. I mean, I would just say that, yeah, I would assume that they didn't, because they are honest and upstanding people. But, yeah, obviously people are going to question that. No, there's no way to prove it short of putting our collections in escrow, but the RC has a zero-tolerance policy for abusing knowledge of pending or potential changes. If a vendor has evidence of cards being sold before the announcement, we invite them to reach out and to publish it. So, yeah, I mean, I for one, trust the Rules Committee when it comes to that. Yeah, they're not going to just be like, oh, okay, yeah, I will sell off my 10 Jewel Lotuses and then be 100% fine when I ban this card because I'm okay with it. So, there you go. Next up. Will the RC roll back these changes? Do you listen to the audience? So the response to that is we have no desire or intent to roll back these changes and believe that doing so would make any financial concerns much worse. We also believe the format as a whole will be better for them. That said, we do listen to feedback about how it was communicated, executed, and other suggestions about how to handle it in the future. Yeah, I think that moving backwards at this point would be incredibly counterproductive, and I mean, that would just shake the foundations, I think, of just trust in the format in general, potentially, because, yeah, I mean, when you have this governing body of the format making a decision and then immediately backing out of that decision and throwing things into chaos, it kind of calls into question any decisions that they made in the past, number one, and then any future decisions that they are going to be making. So yeah, if they ban something in the future, they'd be like, oh, wait, well, they just unbanned Dockside after they banned it because people complained. So now we just need to complain and they'll unban that. So yeah, I don't see them ever reversing this change. Like, there's no reason for them to. It would be worse to do it now. I mean, again, you're going to have people who literally just, I saw a video actually from one of my local game shops, Lodestone. Make sure you check that one out. Love Lodestone. And they literally made like a milkshake out of, the 3 expensive banned cards. So there you go. Dockside, Mana Crypt, as well as Jewel Lotus. And yeah, I mean, like, you have people already destroying these cards. You have people already selling them as a bulk rare. Literally going back the exact opposite direction would be incredibly chaotic. And then people would be accusing the Rules Committee of like, oh, so, like, they didn't sell off their collections. In fact, what they did is they tanked the price on these cards, bought them up as bulk rares for less than $1, and then unbanned them and then sold them afterwards. That would be some of the accusations. And I'm not saying that they did that. They're not going to do that. That is just the ridiculousness of the internet and potentially expecting that they actually would roll back the changes. So, no, they're not going to roll back the changes. They should not roll back the changes. Even if, let's say that the majority of the community thinks that it was a bad decision, rolling back the changes would throw things into so much more chaos. And I don't believe that the majority of the community thinks that they're bad decisions. Personally, But yeah, I do believe that they listen to the audience, but I believe that they do have their view of the health of the format. I'm not going to say I don't say that I share the exact same view, but their view of the health of the format, they put above, themselves when it comes to like their own collections and when it comes to the opinions of the internet, which are very, very strong, apparently. Okay. Number 3, why didn't you give advance notice of this change? All right, they said, we'll own this one. This could have been done much better. I don't disagree with that, and I'll bring up something specifically here in a little bit. Our policy about advance notice has been for many years to avoid muddying the waters with advance warnings about what we're planning to ban. We used to have a watch list, but it, A, caused noticeable grief when things weren't acted upon, B, slowed down our ability to react when we saw a problem, and C, the losses to less than franchise players who were less aware. So we got rid of it. Okay. I don't mean to... okay. I do think that a watch list would be helpful, personally. I think that it communicates with players like, hey, these are cards that, sure, you can invest into if you want to, but and I know that there's a reason why there are ban discussions around the card. Like, Dockside for years have been discussed. The problem is that, well, it was discussed, and, I mean, again, pulling up from, I read this in my last episode, January 2023 quarterly update, they said, we've publicly had our eye on Dockside Extortionist for a while now and have ultimately concluded that unless there's a sudden surge into more casual spaces, and this is me talking right now, there wasn't, where it hasn't really thrived due to lower density of cheap, fast mana, we don't anticipate taking action on it. It's a ridiculously powerful card, but scales with the rest of the table, and at the point it becomes broken, plenty of other broken stuff is already happening. I mean, agree or disagree with that statement, but they did, again, over a year, nearly 2 years ago, said Dockside isn't going to be banned, basically, is what they said, and then they banned it. So there are better ways to communicate these things. There are better ways to, again, I do think that a watch list is needed, in my opinion. Like, hey, these are the cards that are at risk of being banned. Not saying they're going to be banned now or in the future, but, like, if they do get banned, you should not be surprised. So it's kind of like a buyer beware thing where it's like, you know what? We are not trying to ban it, but at some point it might get banned. Okay? So, yeah, overall, I do think that a watch list, I do think is needed. That way it's kind of more so like a buyer beware. Like, not that they would actually act on that, but like something like Turgid could still be on the watch list because, yeah, that card's annoying. But yes, being able to have cards on a watch list ahead of time to be like, you know what? If I'm going to invest in this card, I know that it could be banned. Or maybe I ask play groups like, hey, like, I want to play with this card, but like, I don't want to invest $75 on it when it's on this watch list. Like, could I proxy it? Are you okay with that? Maybe I've got one in my collection, I'll proxy the rest of them, whatever it is. But ensuring that players, again, aren't losing a ton of money on, Magic. That being said, money isn't the focus of the rules committee when it comes to making their decisions. Second, on top of that, many recent bannings have come primarily from community feedback. Hullbreacher, Flash, Paradox Engine were all cards the community told us were a problem. So there was public awareness in advance. This wasn't the case with Golos, and there was some objection to Surprise, but has been borne out as a good ban. I mean, that's an opinion, as a former Golos player. I mean, I can't really argue that Golos maybe should have been banned, but, that was surprising. Moving on, and so was Iona. Iona was a surprise, goodness gracious. Lastly, discussing potential pending bans with more people increases the chance of leaks, which make the losses even more unfair. Our goal with keeping a secret, especially in the case of expense cards, was to avoid any possibility for advanced trading based on leaks. That is completely fair. When it comes to like, hey, if we keep discussing this with more people from the community and saying like, do you all think that this should be banned? Then, the players who are more enfranchised can, know in advance like, oh, this might get banned and start selling things off. They might not be, but they might be. That being said, again, my opinion would just be just have a watch list and just keep those cards on it. I think that I mean, when you see a problem, like, again, B, right, when slow down ability rack is your problem, I don't see how that's the case. Again, you should be able to say, like, hey, this card just got spoiled. It's immediately on the watch list, Nadu or whatever, essentially. It's immediately on the watch list. It is a problem, potentially. Buyer beware. Before you build a deck around it, it's on the watch list already. That kind of thing as well. So, yeah, I do think that, like, the watch list is something that I do think does need to kind of be a thing. And the cards that, go on it probably should just stay on it. Because, again, if a card at some point is evaluated as a potential problem, then that doesn't really change in the future. I mean, I don't think that would just change. Like, the entire format is not going to shift so that card is no longer a problem. Or, the entire... I mean, there aren't going to be, like, cards printed like, well, now that's not a problem because this other card was printed. It's like, that's not really how things work in Commander. In the case of the September 2024 bans... Though the financial impact of this change justified more discussion of community awareness ahead of time, keeping details secret to avoid leaks was important, but discussing the concept openly would have been worth it. Number 4, will you give advance notice of changes in the future? We will be discussing the concept of warming up community awareness before bans like this in the future. To be clear, it would be less of a shock, but casual players will be likely get taken advantage of, so it's not clear it would be a strict improvement. Nevertheless, there is a significant portion of the player base who want to see it, and we acknowledge that this set of bannings caused a lot of pain made worse by surprise. I don't disagree with that. I mean, the thing is, like, you're going to have to choose one side or the other. You have to choose, like, complete surprise to everyone, and everyone is on the same level of, oh my goodness, what just happened? Or, again, just more awareness of what might potentially happen. Again, in my opinion, that ban list should just be a thing, ban watch list. And then, sure, the enfranchised players do have a bit more notice. They do have that buyer beware. The casual players out there that aren't checking, the watch list or whatnot, or aren't staying up on social media when it comes to the rules committee, that kind of stuff as well. Yes, that is the thing they might get taken advantage of. But again, when you have a ban like this, where like, okay, Mana Crypt's been on the watch list for, however many years that the watch list has been around, then eventually gets banned, it's like, some players out there that even more in franchise, like, still might be like, oh, well, it hasn't been banned for 3 years or 4 years or whatever it is, and they still can invest in it and still make that mistake. So I do think that you need a little more advance notice of things. Okay. Why didn't you ban cards one at a time and see how that went? Okay, let's see what they said. The decision to ban multiple cards at the same time, Dockside, Crypt, and Lotus, was based on the belief that it sends a stronger message about what we're trying to achieve. Agree with that goal or not, a slow drip would have diluted the impact. If the problem is real, then we wanted to act decisively. I don't disagree. If you're going to ban, for a reason, you need to ban them all for a reason instead of just, like, spreading it out. And I think that would cause even more chaos if they're like, all right, we banned Mana Crypt. But in the near future, we might ban some other things that are somewhat similar. And then everyone's like, oh my gosh, what in the world is going to get banned next? Erupting into chaos and things getting sold off and speculated on. And yeah, again, Magic is not meant to be a financial investment. I'm just going to keep saying that. Magic is not meant to be a financial investment. If you want to invest in things, invest in stocks or whatnot, okay? Anyways, did Wizards know these cards might be banned when they sold them in 2023? So that was kind of something that was brought up that I believe Dockside and Mana Crypt were reprinted in 2023. Is that correct? I don't know if the Lotus was or not, Dual Lotus, but it might have been. I don't know. We have discussed our concerns about fast mana, including marquee cards like Dual Lotus and Mana Crypt with WotC for some time, but had not decided to ban them until recently. We knew it would be a painful change and maybe waited too long, but once we decide to ban cards, we act and have never sat on a banning. So that's, they did answer it. They didn't say specifically we didn't decide to ban this in 2024, but I assume that's what they mean by this, essentially. Like, Wizards didn't know they were going to be banned when they were printing them. They didn't directly say that, but I believe that you can kind of read between the lines that they intend to mean that. But yeah, I don't believe that they're like, I don't believe that Wizards was like, oh, well, it's going to get banned, so let's just print them so people buy them this one last time. Like, I don't believe that, conspiracy theory to be true. So, moving on. Did you ban these cards specifically because they're expensive? That is a weird question. Okay, no, that reverses the cause and effect. Cards are expensive because they've been kept as chase rares and are very powerful. We ban them on their power and impact on the format, and while we accept that the monetary value is real, it doesn't justify leaving them in the format. I 100% agree with that. Kind of unfair as a budget player, but yeah, it's something that I definitely agree with, that basically, yeah, you aren't going to be able to, just say, oh, okay, since that card is expensive, we will never ban it, because then it just protects cards because they're financial investments. That's a very strange way to run a format, number one. Number two, it then's like, oh, okay, like any card over $100 they're never going to ban, so like let's just all make sure that we keep those cards, we get to keep buying those cards. Like, you can't make decisions like this based on, the market, really. Like, you kind of have to ignore the market entirely when you're trying to balance a game. So, yeah, I mean, I do believe that they should never, ever, ever, ever make decisions based off of monetary value of cards, and cards should be able to be banned, even though they're expensive. So, yeah, it shouldn't be something that, you ever really have to, it shouldn't even be a question, in my opinion, but apparently it is. Okay. Did you ban these cards specifically to target cEDH, tEDH? What in the world is tEDH? Someone let me know in the comments below. I mean, it's like the high end with cEDH, but I'm assuming tEDH is somewhere around there. No idea. Okay. No, while this set of bannings does have a large impact on cEDH metagame, that was neither our goal nor overwhelming consideration. In fact, it's something we like to avoid, but not a high priority. We banned them because they're having an increasing effect on casual games and Rule Zero pre-game conversations. We're no longer keeping them in check. I mean, that's been the case for years. I wouldn't say it's been an increasing effect, but yeah, I mean, like, it's just like, you can't. Okay. Casual EDH is the main focus of the rule list. That is just like how EDH is. EDH is inherently more casual. Like, sure, like higher end casual sometimes too. But when it comes to like, are they designing the rule set around cEDH? Inherently, no. Because, yeah, the like first rule cEDH, but like one of the things about cEDH is like you kind of ignore like the Rule Zero. Like that's like basically some part of it. Where Rule Zero is, yeah, we're not going to be, I mean, it depends on the playgroup, right? But it's not going to be like, okay, like no holds barred, like I'm going to destroy your lands, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that. Like, I'm not saying that all cEDH games are like that, but I'm saying that like they aren't, the rules are designed around like Rule Zero being in effect. So if it's not in effect, then yeah, it's different. So I mean, I'm not saying that like people can't feel targeted by these bans, because it does impact a lot of cEDH players out there with the power level of these cards, but inherently when you are banning more powerful cards out there, it's going to affect players that are playing at the higher power levels. That's just kind of how it is. All right. Do you care that banning these cards damages the cEDH metagame? We care because some of our players enjoy that style of play, but believe this is a small portion of the global player base, and that high-powered play leaking into lower power groups is a recurring problem. We have always been very clear that we like to make changes based on helping casual players have the best play experience, that cEDH players who simplify the pregame conversation may be caught in the blast. This was an extreme example of that, although our contacts in the high-power community believe will not be destructive to the format and/or it will evolve into something new. I mean, I have no doubt that cEDH players will be able to adjust off of this. I mean, they adjust off of Flash, they adjust off of other things as well. They're going to be able to adjust. But yeah, again, they basically said that like, hey, we're going to be working to help casual players. That's like essentially what their goal is with the rule set, and with that, the ban list as well. Why wasn't the CAG told about the bans or consulted? The CAG has been involved in numerous conversations about format speed over the past few years and have shared their opinions with us. They were not informed of the choice to ban these cards because we felt we had the information we needed from them and elsewhere, and as a large group, it would have been difficult to keep it under wraps. As above, we felt making sure there were no leaks was paramount. I don't disagree with that. Again, like when you're consulting, you're getting advice over time from a group like this. You're getting consulting from the community at large. But if you're trying not to leak the information that this might be banned, keeping it in a tight circle is definitely going to be more beneficial than spreading that information wide. Are other expensive cards safe from being banned? Again, this is a question where I'm like, are people seriously asking this? Like, really? Like, really? Yes, but not absolutely beyond reproach. I mean, it's a weird response, too. We're not going to paint ourselves in a corner and say that we'll never ban expensive cards, but we can say categorically that we do not want to ban cards that staples are part of Commander. The card pool is incredibly large, and that we will try to keep the format stable going forward unless those cards are causing large problems. So again, like, monetary-wise, it shouldn't be a consideration on whether a card can be banned or not. Just because a card is 10 cents versus a card is $500 doesn't mean that you can't ban the $500 one. Like, just because there are financial implications, like, that's not how you balance a game. Like, you can't just be like, oh, that card's safe because it's expensive. Like, I understand players, again, out there worrying about certain cards, and this is exactly where I believe, again, you need to have a watch list. Being like, okay, basically, unless a card like just got printed, if a card's been on the watch list for over a year, like, yeah, I mean, it's been on there. Like, people know that card might be a financial risk. Like, if it's on the watch list, it might be a financial risk if you're going to make that kind of investment, because that card could be banned. So I do think that is a good approach to just have this watch list of these cards that potentially could be banned in the future. And there are ones that have been discussed over time, like Dockside was discussed left and right. But then again, like the rules committee said last year that, it's probably not going to be banned, which then it becomes banned. So like, need to be clear on what your intentions with cards are, whether they're completely safe, whether they are on this watch list, or whether, eventually they do get banned. Okay, moving on. I think that's it, because this is just like the rereading, and I said this on the other episode as well, like what their explanations for all these bans are. So if you want to read those, I'll just like scroll down real quick so you can read through those, I guess. But also, just make sure you check out that episode yesterday where I talked about their reasonings behind the bannings, whether I agree with them or not. Yeah, and why I think certain things were banned as well, or kind of like the impetus of this. Again, I do believe that like they have had these discussions over time, but I do believe that like Nadu getting banned in the other formats made it so like, okay, now Nadu is okay to be banned in this format, and while we're banning this, let's ban these other things that we've talked about for a while banning now. So again, I'm not part of the rules committee. I'm not part of the CAG. I have no insight to this, but again, it just seems like interesting timing when again, Nadu was banned. And then it's like, oh, that kind of just creaks open the door to ban it in this format as well, because it has been problematic. And then, throwing in other bans too. And with that, this episode is coming to a close. As always, comment below with your thoughts on it. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.